All right, ready to dive deep. We're talking twin flames.
Ooh, juicy topic.
Right. It's one of those things people have strong opinions about.
Definitely. So, what's our source material for this deep dive?
We've got this podcast. It's all about the 10 signs you've found your twin flame.
10 signs, huh? Sounds like a recipe for a relationship.
Well, that's what we're here to unpack, right?
Yeah.
We're not here to tell anyone what to believe, but it's fascinating to dig into these ideas.
Exactly. I mean, whether you believe in twin flames or not, there's got to be something to these signs that make them so compelling, right?
Totally. So let's break it down. Sign number 1, are you ready for this? Instant connection.
Oh, yeah, the fabled love at first sight.
Kind of, but the source describes it as more than just attraction. It's like you've known this person your whole life, like a soul recognition thing.
Okay, now that's interesting. So, how do we differentiate a strong initial attraction from this, like, deeper soul connection? Because I'm sure we've all met someone and felt an instant spark.
Totally. And the podcast kind of dances around that, talks about this feeling of coming home. But how much of that is real and how much is, just our brains going a little haywire?
Right. It's like, is it a soul connection or just good chemistry?
Exactly. And even if it is this deep soul thing, does that automatically mean it's romantic?
That's a great question because I think a lot of people associate twin flames with romantic relationships, but what if it's something else?
Something to ponder.
Hmm.
So, are you ready to hear about sign number 2? This one gets juicy.
Lay it on me.
It's all about feeling totally comfortable and safe with your twin flame.
Okay, that makes sense. Like, if you found your other half, you should feel completely at ease with them.
Right. And the podcast uses this imagery of being seen and accepted for exactly who you are, flaws and all.
That's beautiful and all, but isn't that something we all crave in any relationship? To feel safe enough to be vulnerable and authentic.
For sure. But with your twin flame, it's like amplified. Like you don't have to work for it. It's just there from the beginning.
So no awkward first date jitters. That's a pretty sweet deal.
Sign me up. Okay, ready for a curveball. Sign number 3 is all about being challenged by your twin flame.
Challenged. Okay, I did not see that one coming. I thought it was all rainbows and butterflies.
Right. You'd think. But the source makes it clear that this isn't about your typical relationship drama. It's about them pushing you to grow.
Interesting. So, like, they're holding up a mirror showing you where you can improve.
Exactly. And not always in the gentlest way either. It's like they can see right through your BS.
Oh, so they're not afraid to call you out on your stuff.
Not at all.
Okay.
But it's not malicious. It's like they want you to be the best version of yourself.
That's a fine line to walk, being supportive but also challenging. I mean, how do you know if they're just being critical or if they're genuinely trying to help you grow?
Right. It's all about the delivery, I guess. And maybe that's part of the twin flame magic. They just know how to push your buttons in a way that ultimately makes you a better person. Or, maybe it's just good communication and a healthy dose of tough love.
There's that or. But speaking of intensity, sign number 4 really ramps things up.
Oh boy, here we go. What kind of intensity are we talking about?
Buckle up, because apparently twin flame connections are known for their emotional roller coasters. The highs are higher, the lows are lower, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, see, now this is where I get a little skeptical. I mean, relationships have their ups and downs, that's normal. But should it feel like you're on a constant emotional roller coaster?
That's a good question. And the podcast does acknowledge that this intensity can be a double-edged sword. While it can lead to incredible passion and connection, it can also be draining and even destructive if it's not managed in a healthy way.
It's all about finding that balance, right? Like,
Yeah.
passion is great, drama, not so much. But how do you tell the difference?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And I think it requires a lot of self-awareness and honesty about what you're willing to tolerate in a relationship.
Totally, because intense feelings don't automatically equal a healthy connection.
Exactly. Sometimes the quietest connections are the most profound.
Ooh, I like that. Speaking of quiet connections, sign number 5 is all about that almost telepathic bond twin flames supposedly share.
Telepathy. Now we're getting into some woo-woo territory.
Right. It sounds pretty far out there, like, finishing each other's sentences, knowing what the other is thinking without a word being spoken.
Okay, that'd be pretty cool. But is it really exclusive to twin flames, or could it just be that deep, unspoken understanding that can develop in any truly intimate relationship?
That's what I'm wondering.
I mean, I've definitely been in sync with people where it felt like we were reading each other's minds.
Me too. Especially with close friends or siblings. You just get to a point where you can anticipate each other's thoughts and reactions.
It's like you've developed your own language.
Totally. So maybe it's less about magic and more about good old-fashioned communication and shared experiences.
Exactly. It's about putting in the time and effort to truly know someone to the
Hmm.
point where words aren't always necessary because you're just so in sync.
That's beautiful. It really is amazing when you think about it. But okay, moving on from unspoken vibes, sign number 6 is a little more practical. It's about shared values.
Oh, so like being on the same page about the big stuff.
Exactly. The podcast says twin flames often have very similar core beliefs and life goals.
That makes sense, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to be with someone who has completely opposite values.
Totally. It's like imagine trying to build a life with someone who wants to travel the world while you'd rather settle down and have a garden.
Yeah, that could lead to some disagreements down the road. And I think that's what the source is getting at here. It's not just about agreeing on what movie to watch, it's about those fundamental beliefs that shape your worldview.
So is it a twin flame thing or just good old-fashioned compatibility?
Right. Because having shared values is important in any relationship, wouldn't you say? Whether it's romantic, friendship, even in a work setting.
Absolutely. When you're on the
Yeah.
same page with someone, it just makes things flow so much easier.
Totally. And it creates a sense of trust and understanding, which is essential for any kind of lasting bond. But, the podcast does kind of romanticize it, makes it seem like twin flames just magically align on everything.
Which, let's be real, isn't always the case, even in the most meant-to-be relationships.
Exactly. People are complex, we're constantly evolving, so it's natural for our values and goals to shift over time. The important thing is that we allow for that growth, both individually and together.
That's such a good point. It's like the real magic isn't about finding someone who perfectly matches you at every moment,
Yeah.
but about being able to navigate those changes together.
Now you're getting it. Okay, are you ready for sign number 7? Because this one's a real doozy.
Hit me with it.
It's all about that magnetic pull, that irresistible draw that twin flames supposedly have toward each other.
Okay, so kind of like that saying, can't live with them, can't live without them.
Well, hopefully not that dramatic. But the podcast does describe it as this intense force that keeps pulling you back to this person no matter what happens.
Like you're stuck in each other's orbit.
Exactly. And while that can sound incredibly romantic, it's important to differentiate between a healthy attraction and unhealthy attachment.
Ooh, that's a good distinction. How do we tell the difference?
Well, a healthy pull is about mutual respect, admiration, it feels good, it's supportive. But when it tips into unhealthy territory, it can become obsessive, controlling, even destructive.
That's a good point. So how do we know if it's real or if we're just holding on too tight?
That's where self-reflection is key. It's about asking yourself some tough questions. Am I drawn to this person because they truly enhance my life? Or am I clinging to them out of fear, insecurity, or a need to fix them?
So it's like, are you in love with the person or the idea of the person?
Bingo. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. But hey, that's why we're doing this deep dive, right? To unravel these complex dynamics.
Exactly. All right, let's keep going with sign number 8. Mutual healing. This one seems pretty positive, right? Like you're helping each other become better versions of yourselves.
It does sound nice, doesn't it? And it's true, supportive relationships can be incredibly healing. But I think it's important to remember that true healing is an inside job.
Okay, I hear you. You can't rely on someone else to fix you, even if they are your supposed twin flame.
Exactly. We all have our own baggage, our own wounds to heal. And while a loving partner can support us through that process, they can't do the work for us.
It's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water.
But you can't make it drink. And the same goes for healing. You have to be willing to do the work yourself.
You're preaching to the choir. All right, what's next on this twin flame checklist?
Well, get ready for a heavy dose of sentimentality because sign number 9 is all about unconditional love.
Okay, who doesn't love a good love story? But seriously, what makes it different in the twin flame realm? Isn't that the goal for any relationship?
You'd think, right? But the podcast paints this picture of a love that transcends all boundaries, a love that accepts every flaw, every imperfection. It's like the ultimate form of acceptance.
So, loving someone for exactly who they are, warts and all.
Exactly. And, it's a beautiful idea, this notion that someone could love us that completely, that unconditionally. But it also begs the question, is that kind of love really limited to twin flames?
I know we've all heard stories of incredible love stories, soulmates who've been together for decades.
Right. So maybe the real magic isn't about finding your predestined other half, but about cultivating that capacity for unconditional love within ourselves, regardless of who we're with.
Now, that's a powerful thought. Instead of searching for someone to complete us, it's about becoming whole ourselves and then sharing that wholeness with another.
Exactly. And I think that's a message that resonates far beyond the twin flame concept. It's about recognizing that we are all worthy of love, just as we are.
Okay, I'm feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. All right, last but not least, sign number 10. What's the grand finale?
Drum roll, please. It's all about shared purpose. Apparently, twin flames often feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, like they have a joint mission to accomplish in the world.
Interesting. So it's not just about the two individuals, but about their combined impact on the world.
Precisely. And it makes you wonder if maybe that sense of shared purpose is what gives twin flame connections that extra layer of depth and meaning. Like, they're not just two people in love, they're partners on a mission.
So it's like they're here to do something important together.
That's the idea. But again, I think we can apply this concept to any relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner, a close friend, a family member, or even within our communities. Finding that sense of shared purpose can be incredibly powerful.
Totally. It's about finding your tribe, your people, those who share your values and inspire you to make a difference.
Exactly. And when you find that alignment, that sense of shared purpose, it can create an incredibly strong bond.
Well, that was quite the deep dive. We covered everything from instant connections to telepathy to unconditional love.
We really ran the gamut of twin flame experiences.
We did. But, even if you're not sold on the whole twin flame concept, I think there's a lot we can take away from these 10 signs.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, we all crave deep, meaningful connections. We want to feel seen, loved, supported. And whether we find that with a twin flame, a soulmate, or a close friend, those connections are what make life worth living.
Beautifully said. It's about approaching all our relationships with that same level of intention, openness, and love. And who knows, maybe that's the real secret to finding our own version of magic, twin flame or not.